Hey everybody, today I wanted to talk about 4 albums that I just uploaded to my website, needlemeetsvinyl.com, and they are 4 albums that I've never had on the website before, so I'm really excited to talk about them. So let's get right into it. The first album that I want to talk about is an album by Eric Clapton called 461 Ocean Boulevard. Now, this is one of Clapton's most famous albums, and it's one of my favorite albums that he ever put out as well. It's a very laid-back album is how I would describe this. This was recorded after Eric had kind of taken a break from music for a while. He had a really bad drug problem that he had to get over. And so the first album that he made after that was this album right here. And it's produced by Tom Dowd, who also produced the Layla album by Derek and the Dominoes. And it also features the same bass player that played with Derek and the Dominoes, Carl Radel, who plays bass. He also plays bass on this as well. And this album has one of Clapton's biggest hits, actually. A cover of the Bob Marley song, I Shot the Sheriff, is on here. And it's just a really, really cool album from Eric Clapton. And I spent a lot of time working on this particular record because, first of all, it's a really, really well-recorded album. It's always sounded good. It's very rare that you find a pressing that doesn't sound at least pretty good. But I went through a lot of different pressings, including some UK pressings, some pressings from Germany, and a lot of different US pressings, including a lot of reissues as well. But this pressing right here sounded absolutely phenomenal compared to all those other ones. And I know a lot of people rave about the UK pressing of this album, and while that does sound really, really good, they're very, very hard to find. And I think this one right here, which happens to be a US pressing, and I will tell you more about it in a second, but I think this one right here beats it out for a number of reasons, and I'll talk about those right now. But first, let me show you this record. It's on the RSO label, and the most important thing about this is that it has Sterling stamped on both sides. So you get Sterling on side 1, Sterling on side 2, and this record is in absolutely beautiful near mint condition. Just sounds so wonderful. Now, this record was recorded in Florida, in Miami, Florida, actually, at Criteria Studios, the same studio that the Layla album was recorded at, with Tom Dowd producing as well, like I said earlier. And it was also mixed and mastered in America as well. So that's why this US pressing, I think, has a little bit of an edge over a lot of the UK pressings and the German pressings. A lot of people rave about the UK pressings, as I said before, but this US pressing just has a little bit more oomph, is what I would call it. It seems like the bass is has a little bit more presence. The high end is just so crystal clear. There are certain songs like Give Me Strength, which the acoustic guitars on that are just so nice. They're really, really nice sounding. And it's just an excellent sounding record from the first song all the way to the last. So if you like Eric Clapton and you love this album, this is a fantastic pressing that I know you would love to listen to. So check this one out on the website, Eric Clapton, 461 Ocean Boulevard. Now, the next record is an album by the Average White Band called Cut the Cake. Now, this is a record you put on if you want to just change the mood of your day. Let's say you wake up and you're kind of down in the dumps. You put this record on. It is so uplifting. The grooves are amazing. You will immediately start clapping your hands, stomping your feet. This is a great record for that. And it sounds absolutely phenomenal. The title track from this album was a top 10 US hit called Cut the Cake, and it's a really, really just awesome R&B funk song. And what's interesting about Average White Band is they are Scottish guys playing R&B funk, which is just really, really cool in itself, and they do it oh so well. And this happens to be on the Atlantic Records label. And again, this record is in beautiful condition. And it just sounds great. And it's one of those records that, honestly, it's like there are certain records that I know for me personally that if I put on, it'll just put me in a good mood, such as like the Beatles' Abbey Road, Dave Brubeck Quartet's album Time Out. There's just certain records that you put on and it just kind of lifts the mood. This is one of those records as well. It's just got so much joy and so much excitement in the record, and it sounds great to boot. So really, you can't go wrong with this fantastic album by the Average White Band. So check this one out as well. And by the way, I should mention, it features Hamish Stewart, who went on to play with Paul McCartney in the late 80s and early 90s in Paul's touring band. So just a little bit of a side note there. Moving on, I have two amazing jazz records that I have loved for a long time, and I've really put a lot of time and effort into these albums. I gotta say, on my website, it's funny, the jazz records people just don't really gravitate towards them all that much. Every once in a while, I'll get someone who picks up a jazz record, and I'm always so excited by that. So when I work on these jazz records, they are totally a labor of love because they are not the quick sellers like the Beatle records or Led Zeppelin records or Rolling Stones, stuff like that. But I do it because I love them, and they sound so good, and I think people should really check them out. The first one is an album by Stan Getz, and it's the new Stan Getz Quartet featuring Astrid Gilberto, and I probably said that completely wrong, but you know what I was trying to say. It's called Getz a Go-Go, and this is a live album that was released in 1964, and this is just an absolutely classic jazz album, and it came along in 1964 when bossa nova was all the rage in America. It was like the new thing, right? Besides the Beatles, of course, because the Beatles in 64 were clearly 90% of what was going on with music. But the other 10% included bossa nova. It was a big craze. And this album really was kind of one of the first ones to bring bossa nova music into American households. Because really, if you didn't get it from Stan Getz, you really probably weren't going to be that exposed to bossa nova music. But this live album sounds absolutely brilliant, and there's a big reason for that. So this is an original pressing from 1964, a stereo pressing. It's on the Verve Records label, and it has an all-important stamp on both sides that says Van Gelder. Van Gelder is Rudy Van Gelder, who recorded this album. Rudy Van Gelder recorded a bunch of classic jazz albums for the Verve label, for Blue Note. Just an amazing engineer. And the records that he worked on are just known throughout the land as they sound absolutely brilliant. And this one sounds absolutely brilliant, just like all the other ones. It's got so much atmosphere is how I would describe it. There's so much room around each instrument. It really paints a picture of the soundscape. You can really get an idea of oh yeah, that's where the drums are, that's where the bass is, that's where Stan Getz's saxophone is. You can really get a good feel of every single instrument, and that's so important when it comes to a jazz live album like this. I really can't say enough about this. It's so great, and I just highly recommend it. So if you're looking for a great jazz record, this could be the one for you. So definitely check this one out on the website. Stan Getz, Getz a Go-Go. And last but not least, this is probably one of my all-time favorite jazz albums ever. It's right up there for me with the best of Coltrane, the best of Miles Davis, the best of Dave Brubeck and Duke Ellington. This album by the Cannonball Adderley Quintet. This is the Cannonball Adderley Quintet in San Francisco. And this is a live album, another live album, but this is one of the very first live jazz albums that was truly recorded in a live setting with a live audience. And it just sounds absolutely brilliant. And it's a record that I've been trying to get on the website for a long time, but the copies of this are very hard to find. I have an actual original pressing, a US stereo pressing of this. Well, it sounds good, but this pressing right here is a repress on the original Jazz Classics label, OJC. released in like 1982, I believe. This is what this is from. But this reissue sounds better than the original. Yes. Every once in a while, you will come across a record like this that sounds better than the original. Now, how can that be? Well, number of reasons. For me, the original, while it sounds very good, it seems to lack a lot of high end, seems to lack just an overall clarity. It has a little bit kind of like almost like a muted filter about it. This reissue is crystal clear and sounds absolutely brilliant. And I just can't say enough about this. It's an amazing record from start to finish. Cannonball talks in between each song, and his dialogue is interesting, informative. He's just an amazing, amazing musician. By the way, Cannonball Adderley, besides being amazing on his own, also played on Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, played on Miles Davis' Milestones album. He's just an amazing jazz musician, up there with the greats, like I said earlier. So this album is just a brilliant, brilliant record, and I tell all my friends about it. In fact, one time I remember not too long ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, back when my wife and I were living with our old roommate, I was playing this record, and he heard it from the other room, and I could tell he was really into it because he was like tapping along. And then about 20 minutes into the record, he finally came into the room, and he never would come into our room. And he was like interested in this record, and he asked who it was. I told him. By the way, he's a musician as well. And he immediately went out and bought a CD version of it, and he listened to it like nonstop. He was just like immediately turned on to it. So it's one of those albums that once you discover it, it really stays with you. And like I said, this is one of my all-time favorite jazz records. So I cannot recommend it enough. So if you're looking for some great jazz, this is the one for you. So head over to the website, check out this Cannonball Adderley record, check out this Stan Getz record, check out the Average White Band, and check out Mr. Eric Clapton. All of these are on the website right now, needlemeetsvinyl.com. Check them out, and they sound great. So what more can I say? By the way, before I go, I should mention, I thank all of you that checked out my last video, which is a new song of mine that I have just put out with my friend Gabe Dulick. We recorded an album during this like quarantine time. We both had a lot of time on our hands, or extra time on our hands. So I recorded my parts here at my house, and he recorded his drum parts at his studio in Burbank, California. And we ended up recording 12 tracks, and we have a new album out. So it's on Spotify right now. If you want to check it out, it's called Desperate Days. And check out the video that I just released yesterday for a song called Losing Train of Thought. And you can check that out. If you like that song, maybe you'll like the rest of the album. And on that video, there's a link to the Spotify album page, so you can check that out as well. But I thank all of you who checked it out already and have sent me messages saying that you like it. I really appreciate it. Very cool of you. For those of you who don't know, by the way, I'm a musician at night, and in the daytime, I work on records. So music, obviously, is just my whole life. And writing and recording music is a very, very big part of my life. In fact, a bigger part than actually working on records. So putting out that new album is a big deal for me, and I'm just really excited to get new music out there. And I'd love for all of you to check it out. So if you get some time, go over and check it out. And hey, that's it for now. So hope you're doing well, and take care. Bye for now.